Let me talk briefly today about Transparency International report on Nigeria. In a recent report, Nigeria has dropped in the yearly Transparency International corruption ranking. We moved 2 steps down. We now rank the 34th most corrupt nation in the world, that is 146 out of 180 countries. This grading was carried out by different sources within and outside Nigeria based on perceptions provided by the business leaders and experts in the public sector. Our government got very, very angry with the report, and our ministers frowned at the judgment, claiming that Nigeria was doing exceptionally well in the fight against corruption. Unfortunately, I think the Nigerian government does not seem to understand the gravity of corruption perception in Nigeria and how the rest of the world looks at Nigeria. Now, instead of attempting to discredit or blackmail Transparency International, why don't we rather ask how they arrived at their ratings? It is very unfortunate that as a government, we throw our dirty linen to the international public when we argue as market women do, who do not verify facts before jumping into conclusion. In Nigeria, when we talk about corruption, we mean theft of public funds by public officials. But at the international system, that constitutes less than 5% aggregate of what constitutes what they consider as corruption. EFCC goes after people who stole from government coffers. They are publicly arrested, detained, and they are detained 1 or 2 days. Some pay their way out. Some settle judges and prosecutors and they walk away. Some pretend to faint and are placed on wheelchairs. Some faint during Senate hearings. Some cases are withdrawn by court judgment and their files are closed. Just an insignificant number will finally go to jail, and we expect the world to hail us for a job well done. That's very unfortunate. So when Transparency International measures corruption, the question we should be asking is, what exactly are they measuring? By Transparency International measurement, corruption is measured using 2 different scales. One is what they call Corruption Perception Index, that is CPI. The other is called Global Corruption Barometer, that is GCB. Now, listen carefully. Corruption Perception Index defines corruption as the misuse of public power for private gain. Listen to that definition very carefully. The misuse of public power for private gain. So theft of money by public official is corruption, but it is just a small part of what is considered corruption, looking at it as an aggregate. A mobile police officer who uses his position to oppress the people, beat up innocent people, or a soldier who makes civilians to roll on mud water just for the fun of it or to satisfy their private ego is using public power for private gain, or we call it private enjoyment. That is also considered corruption. A state prosecutor who abandons abused persons in jail, or a judge who travels out of his jurisdiction to attend to private needs, abandoning his official responsibilities, even though he did not collect money from anyone, that too is measured as corruption because it is the use of public power or privilege for private gain. Or a governor or minister who uses government funds without proper budgetary allocation for personal expenditure, all that is considered corruption because it is the use of public power for private gain. So it's not all about someone who stole 100 million and EFCC chases him, and then that is actually considered as corruption. Corruption covers every facet of our national life. If we need to look at corruption from the point of view of misuse of public power to satisfy private gain, then Nigeria may be the most corrupt country in the world. There are state governors who spend state funds as if it is their private money. They fly charter jet, sometimes they book entire floors in luxurious hotels overseas for months for their aides, for their friends, for their families. When elementary schools in their states are in disrepair, children still sit on floor under the rain to take classes, yet these chief executives use public funds to sponsor their private lifestyle. That too is corruption, according to most international corruption measured index worldwide. So we should stop the whole argument or the whole thing we are talking about corruption being the work that EFCC does. That is nonsense. Corruption is not all about EFCC arresting politicians or show of force to deceive the public. Corruption has become a lifestyle we live at the detriment of our citizens in Nigeria. What about bureaucrats, senators, and top politicians who pad budgets in several parastatals, turn around, get these contracts awarded to their private companies? That is the use of private power for private use, or that is the use of public power for private use. The government looks the other way. They call it constituency project. That too is corruption, according to both the Corruption Perception Index and the Global Corruption Barometer. For us to think that corruption happens only when you see orange jacket EFCC men running around politicians only makes a mockery of our reasoning as a nation. I will readily argue that our government have no moral fiber to question Transparency International scaling corruption. Abuse of power and use of public power to satisfy private gain has become a culture in our climb. That means if we defend these vices, it means that we don't see anything wrong with the state of things as they are. We should rather put our house in order and get a more favorable rating next time rather than act out all wholly in outright deception. The second scale used by Transparency International in arriving at this result is what they call the Global Corruption Barometer, that is GCB. Let me explain this to you. This is a survey that tracks the world's public opinion on corruption. You may want to know what the world thinks about Nigeria. As Nigerians, do we care to know what they think about us? Do you know most college textbooks used in the developed world, whenever they need to give an example of cyber crimes, they use Nigeria? In international scholarship, Nigeria is now a brand in criminality. Young students around the world who study BSc, MSc, or PhD in cyber crimes use Nigeria as case study. This is where the problem is. Nigeria, the perception the world has about Nigeria, and all these are reflected in Transparency International ratings. So on both the Global Corruption Barometer and the Corruption Perception Index of Transparency International, Nigeria ranks very high. I challenge you, pick up any book on cyber crimes if you will not find Nigeria mentioned. To me, these are the things we should focus on rebranding rather than waging a war on Transparency International ratings, which are considered one of the best globally. We have allowed bribery and sorting to become part of our culture, so much that if it were possible to bribe Transparency International for a better rating, we would have done it. If Nigerian government really means business and want to change the global perception of Nigeria, then we should fight the entire corruption industrial complex. Yes, you heard me right. I called it corruption industrial complex. Corruption has become a business. We buy and sell. We even transfer corruption. It has permeated every facet of our society, from civil servants to churches to security service to fight against insurgency, to recruitment, to police, even to our village chiefs. And at the village level, everyone is a participant in this industrial complex. Corruption has become the biggest industry in Nigeria, bigger than oil and gas, civil service, army, and police all put together. Beginning from primary schools, parents pay to get better results for their wards. In universities, they call it sorting. It has become so bad that society will frown at you if you fail to comply. Vice chancellors now have agents. You pay and get jobs or you gain admission. Governors, court judges all have paid agents. Even religion, people now pay for miracles and prayers. Our embassies overseas, that's Nigerian embassies overseas, they are not spared. Nigerian embassies overseas is one of the only embassies in the world where they collect bribe. So when Transparency International comes with these ratings, we stand up to say it is not true. We have no moral fiber to question their judgment of transparency. The political leadership need to sit up and fix our broken down system rather than a blame game. When the executive arm of government disregards court judgments or interferes with the judiciary, CPI record it as corruption. We see these things happen every day and we say nothing. When the legislature looks the other way, while the executive steals the state dry and misappropriates state funds, CPI looks at it as corruption. We see these things happen every day and we say nothing. Transparency International cannot discipline Nigeria. It is not their responsibility to fix Nigeria. They do not have such powers. But international investors, listen to me carefully, international investors and international donors look at these reports to make judgment if they will engage a country with investment or donor opportunities. So as we continue to get very low ratings in Transparency International, more investors and donor funds stay away from Nigeria. So you can now understand why most investors stay away from Nigeria. It is not what EFCC is doing that means anything to them. The entire corruption industrial complex in Nigeria must be brought down. Arresting one or two politicians, get them released the next day, it's not corruption fight. If we must gain favorable ratings, we need to fix the society. We cannot win corruption by setting up different institutions to fight corruption. The level of penetration requires the development of a process of accountability and ethics in all strata of our national life. From elementary schools to the Supreme Court, we need to enforce discipline. This comes with a lot of political will. We need to reboot the entire country and start afresh. We can rise to be the greatest nation in Africa. It's all about political will. In the words of the world famous Kenyan professor, I call him my mentor, Ali Mazuri, he said, you can teach a man how to dance, and he dances well. You can teach a man how to sing, and he sings well. You can teach a man how to eat, and he eats well. But you cannot teach a man how to govern himself. That and that alone, he must learn from experience. Listen to me, my people, and listen carefully. No one can fix Nigeria except Nigerians themselves. We may not understand the cost of corruption on the nation, but again, who will bail the cat? Join me on YouTube. Join me and click on the subscribe button so you can get all my YouTube videos and all my speeches. It's nice talking to you today, and I hope to be with you here next week. I am Prince Willow Odidi. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you very much.